So I have been slowly adding different things back in. At Thanksgiving, my mom had brought over a couple dishes that I tasted, and I was making a green bean casserole, which is a heavy cream base. And so I was tasting that sauce and like, I don't know, something wasn't tasting right. And so I was trying to figure it out. And then I noticed after Thanksgiving, I was having itching and pain in my back and stuff like that again. And so I'm like, okay, well. Hello, and welcome back to the Kilby Life. I am so excited to share an update about my elimination diet and what I am finding and how my skin is doing. And before I get into all that, I just wanted to thank Element for sponsoring this video. Now, if you have not seen the first two videos that I've done recently about this elimination diet, you might want to go check those out. But to recap, my skin has been having some allergic reaction to something since probably for about 18 months. But in October, it kind of came to a head and I was like, I am done. I had seen my primary care doctor, I had seen a dermatologist, and they both told me, we're happy to treat your symptoms, but we don't know what's causing it, and that's not really our job to figure out, which was super frustrating. Don't get me wrong, I love my primary care doctor. I think she's a wonderful lady, but this isn't her department. Like, she can help me get to the right people, but in that moment, all I could hear was, sorry, this isn't something we can do. Frustrating, but that's okay. I have an appointment coming up with an allergist. Hopefully we'll get something figured out. But in that moment, I felt like I needed to do something now instead of waiting to hopefully get into the right doctor to see me eventually. And so Erin and I talked about it, and I switched to basically a beef, salt, and water diet. I also kept coffee and heavy cream for a while because I am stubborn, but about 2.5 weeks in, I cut those out as well. So this was the beginning of October that I started, and for about 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks, I did a pretty clean diet. And since then, I have lost 16 pounds. That was not the point. That was not the goal. It was to figure out my skin issues. But without the things that are causing my body to be unhealthy, I feel like it was able to heal a lot and recover from the inflammation and things that it was holding on to that it shouldn't be. At the end of that elimination period, which was a little over 3 weeks, I was like, okay, I'm going to start adding foods back in. I started with eggs, noticed a skin reaction, so I cut those back out. Then I added Element because at that point I was just craving something sweet, something that felt like a treat. And y'all, I have got to tell you about this product that they have out right now. They have their chocolate medley box. It has chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. They are delicious. And I noticed in my last video, somebody left a comment about not wanting to use something like this because it kicks off like a sugar craving. And I have found for me that I can have an Element. It satisfies that sugar craving without for the next days making me feel like, oh my goodness, I need to eat sugar. Whereas if I eat something that is sugary, I have to really fight through those cravings for like the next 3 or 4 days after that. This is a blend. It has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. So it's a science-based electrolyte blend that supports any diet. It doesn't have any of the junk in it, so you could have it on a carnivore diet. You could have it on a keto diet, paleo, any of those things. And again, because it doesn't have sugar, it doesn't make me feel like I am going off track. It really makes me feel like I am supporting my body as I am working through these issues that I'm having. Erin really likes the raw and flavored ones. So if the sugar, it's not sugar, if the sweetness is a problem for you, the raw and flavored one might be the way to go. The best thing you can do is if you're going to order some, use the link drinkelement.com/Kilby, drinklmnt.com/Kilby, and they will send you a sample pack with any order. So you can order whatever kind looks good, but then they're going to send you 8 additional samples so you can try all the different flavors and figure out which one you like best. It's a great way to try a lot of different flavors and see what works for you. And the raw ones might be great. For me, I like the raspberry one cold, and this chocolate raspberry one, I feel like it is drinking like an ice cream sundae without feeling any guilt about it. It's fantastic.
Refreshing and salty. Don't forget to share with a salty friend.
I was able to add Element back in pretty quickly as I was adding foods, and I had no reactions, and I was so grateful for that. So that has been kind of my go-to treat now, where if I'm looking for something to break up the monotony of what I'm eating, that's a great way to do it. I have been eating basically ground beef and cabbage for about the past 3 weeks because I am trying really hard to make sure that my skin is in a good place before I introduce anything else. What happened was, after my last video, I said I was going to introduce cream, and I did. I put some cream in my coffee, and then I mixed actually one of the raspberry elements in with some cream and put it in the freezer and ate it almost like ice cream. It was so good, but my skin did not like it. The dairy, the heavy cream just did not do well with my body, and it was frustrating. And then, of course, I am stubborn, so I did not wait very long before I tried tomatoes. And I think what happened was my skin was not recovered enough to add something else in. And so I was like, I don't know if the issues I'm having are because there's still cream and I'm still dealing with that reaction, or if it's from the tomatoes. But either way, this isn't good. And so I was like, okay, so no cream, no tomatoes, no eggs. But I wanted to revisit tomatoes again later, which I did. And I found that I wasn't having issues with them. But it was a great reminder that I have worked so hard to get to this point where I could start introducing foods. There is no benefit saying, okay, well, I'm just going to throw them all back in because now I can eat whatever I want. Then I end up back in the same position I was. So what was even the point of doing it? Like, if you're going to do the hard work, stay the course, right? So I have been slowly adding different things back in. At Thanksgiving, my mom had brought over a couple dishes that I tasted, and I was making a green bean casserole, which is a heavy cream base. And so I was tasting that sauce and like, I don't know, something wasn't tasting right. And so I was trying to figure it out. And then I noticed after Thanksgiving, I was having itching and pain in my back and stuff like that again. And so I'm like, okay, well, but that was kind of one of those situations where I had kind of thrown so much at myself that I hadn't been eating that, again, it's like, why am I undoing all of the hard work I did? I'm not doing this. And then not just a couple days ago, I was making my kids a chicken and cream sauce, and the same thing happened. I was trying to figure out the sauce. It wasn't tasting quite right. And I tasted it a couple of times to kind of get the seasoning correct. And then the next couple days were just torture for my back. It did not feel good. I just wanted to itch it constantly. It was painful. It's painful at this point. And so that kind of just confirmed to me that dairy is really a huge issue, and I'm going to have to be really careful about it because, frankly, I don't want those kind of reactions. It's not worth it. I've also kind of laughed. Like, I don't like most dairy anyway, so I used heavy cream in my coffee. I don't like cheese. I don't like sour cream. I don't drink milk by itself. I never have. I have never liked milk. And so cutting out heavy yogurt is okay, but I don't eat it anymore because of how sugary most of them are. I'm like, dairy is not that big of a deal to eliminate for me because I don't like it for the most part anyway. Same with eggs. I don't really like eggs. So I feel kind of fortunate that the things that I'm being told that I have to cut out are not things that are like my go-to foods anyway. And so that has been really cool. And having done this diet, I feel like I now have a framework where I know what is helpful to my body and what is absolutely not. And so if I want to eat something, like let's say I wanted to eat the dinner that I made for my kids the other day that had the cream sauce, I'm going to pay for it. And I know that. Like, I know my skin is not going to do well. And knowing what the consequences are, I feel like really helps me make better choices so that I'm not tempted to eat something and then, yeah, this is going to make me feel terrible for 3 days. Let's do it. Like, it's easier to avoid those things with that in the back of my mind. So if you touch the stove, you're going to get burnt. Like, we all know this, but you know, so I feel like it's been really cool to have that information so I can avoid the things that are hurting me. I don't know if I'm going to try eggs again. I feel like that was kind of a significant reaction too, where it may not be worth it. And I don't know, and this is something that I guess I have to play with, if eggs baked into something like cake is the only thing I can think of to bake eggs into. I don't generally eat cake, but work with me here. So like eggs on their own cause issues. Eggs baked into something, would that cause an issue or is that okay? Because I've heard of people with egg allergies where they can't have eggs stand alone, but if they're baked into something, it's not an issue. I don't know. And same with dairy. What meat cooked in butter, is that different than butter mixed into something and then I'm eating? Does that make sense? So like, I don't know if the method of cooking or probably the quantity or the ratio of how much butter to whatever else I'm eating, maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Same with cream. Like, so if I'm mixing cream into something and baking it or cooking it differently, does that matter versus cream essentially on a standalone, whether it's cream sauce or in coffee? Those are things that if it becomes an issue, I'm going to have to play with. But for right now, I don't really see a point. The other thing that my doctor had said was that my rash was presenting very much like a gluten rash. And so at some point down the road, I would like to see if I separate gluten from dairy and eggs, how does my skin do with that? And so like right now I use a sourdough recipe for my kids that I could easily substitute a different fat into and take the butter out and try a piece of that to see if the gluten has any reaction. But again, it kind of comes back to, I'm not eating bread regularly anyway, so I don't know how much it matters. So those are kinds of the things now that I'm interested to figure out. Definitely eggs and dairy I am staying away from, and maybe the allergist will tell me something different when I see them. Maybe they'll have more information about that I just don't know. I haven't honestly done a lot of research about it yet. And then again, gluten, if I decide one day to try and figure that one out, cool. But if not, like, again, I'm not eating bread regularly anyway, so I don't know that it matters. I would encourage you, two things. If your body doesn't feel good and your doctor is masking the symptoms instead of trying to figure out what's at the root of it, this might be a great way for you to kind of get that information. It may not have to be as extreme as it was for me, where I cut out everything except for beef and salt. There's a lot of different protocols, if you research it, that can help eliminate certain food groups, or you can even do one at a time and see if you see improvement. But for me, I was like, I'm done. I want to have an answer and I am tired of waiting. And so I went extreme and went for it. The other thing though, is if you're gonna put in the hard work and do the elimination part, don't be like me, although I think I did it okay. But as you're adding things back in, do them one at a time. Give yourself time to recover from a reaction before you add something else back in, because I think that makes a huge difference in seeing results, and it'll hopefully prevent like some false positives like I felt like I had with tomatoes, but I really think it was just because it was too close to when I was eating cream. So, because tomatoes since then have not bothered me at all. I would encourage you to take your own health seriously. Your health matters to you more than does anybody else. Take it seriously, fight for the right answers, and really work hard to get them. If it's something that matters to you, if it's going to change your quality of life, like I feel like I was at the point, this changed my quality of life. And so fight for the right answers for your body. Take care of yourself the best you can. It's a big deal. You're worth it, right? I'm worth it. You're worth it. Let's do this. Kilby out. Don't use that as a thumbnail, husband. No.